kai generalinis bitės direktorius ir tiesiog labai draugiškas ir nuostabus žmogus ir jisai kalbėjęs apie tai, ko reikia šiandieniam darbuotojui. Taigi, per daug eterio neužimdamas noriu pakviesti CEO of Bitė, Robbins.
I know this one's just not hooked up to this stuff, I think. I don't know. Hey, Labadiena, kaip sekasi? It's good. Okay, you can't laugh at my pronunciation of Lithuanian. Yeah, everybody does. Yesterday I was actually doing a conference for Bite all across, and I said, essentially I was saying Šiandien nekalbėsiu lietuviškai, and everybody applauded the fact that I wasn't going to be speaking Lithuanian. I thought that was kind of bad, but okay. So, first of all, what I'm going to be talking to you guys about, I thought this was going to be a really, really easy presentation because I talk about this stuff all the time, hiring, but 99.9% of the time, I talk about it to companies. So I actually tell companies how to hire differently. So if I talk to you guys about the fact that 90% of companies hire the wrong way, it probably wouldn't be very useful for you. So I talk a little bit about that, but then I also talk about how to find some of the companies that I think are really, really good at hiring. Yeah? And a little bit about, if you want to go in terms of what you need to think and study to get into businesses, what you could do. Sound cool? Aišku? Good? Very cool. Okay. Questions already? You don't hear. Okay, is that better? Okay, tell me if I get too, it'll remember. Okay, sorry. Thank God, because if you're asking questions already, I'd be toast, but okay. So, first, I love this slide. I use this slide lots and lots and lots of different times. So, I want the company to think of us as a company with heart, but I want you, essentially a new employee, to think of us as a company that will chew you up, spit you out, and smear you into the carpet if you screw up. Okay, I'm going to come back to this slide a couple of times when I'm talking. It's actually really, really important, because a lot of companies say something externally, and they do something completely different internally. So if you're trying to look for a great company to work for and figure out how that company thinks about hiring, don't listen to what they say. You have to listen to what they do, and I'll come back to that, but I like this slide because it's true for most companies. Yeah? Okay, oh wow, it's actually working too. It's kind of cool. So I call this the bad news slide. It's just one slide, but again, because I believe that 90% of companies hire the wrong way, I'm going to take one slide to tell you how most companies hire. And I hope there's no other companies here that are going to get mad at me, because truthfully, I think this is how they do it. So the very, very first thing is that most companies hire for a role or a position, not a person. That's stupid, by the way. You shouldn't be doing that as a company. It's a very, very bad thing, but 90% of companies actually do this. So I'll talk to you in a second about why you shouldn't do this, and why companies shouldn't do this, and why you guys shouldn't be looking for companies that do this. But just keep in your head, 90% of companies are hiring for a position or a role, not a person. How can you tell? So if you look into the ad and it says, we're looking for a financial analyst with 5 years of experience in banking. That's somebody hiring for a position or a role, not a person. Yeah? But since 90% of companies actually do this, what you guys need to do is make damn sure that when you're talking with the company, you're sending information to the company, you guys connect the dots between what you do and your experience and your education and that specific role. If you're expecting the company to go through everything you've written and everything you've said and connect the dots for you, it is not going to happen. Company is hiring for a role and a position. You need to connect the dots between what you've done and that role and the position they're looking for. Or you find the one company or the 10% of companies that don't actually do it that way, which is kind of cool too. Yeah? Okay. This one is probably true for 95% of companies. It's actually not a company, it's a manager thing. So chances are the manager you're talking to, especially if it's your first job coming out of university, chances are the manager you're talking to is a first-time manager himself. Maybe he's been a manager for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. As a new manager, he thinks his power comes from being smarter than you. So he doesn't want to hire somebody that's smarter than him. Never ever happens. My advice to everybody in the companies I work for is always hire somebody smarter than yourself. If you do that, it makes your job so much easier, but most people don't. So what you don't want to do, even though you'll have lots of enthusiasm, you don't want to go into an interview with the manager and explain to him how in 6 months you're going to change everything he's done. Because he spent the last 2, 3, 4 years building all of that stuff. So if you're coming in saying, hey, I'm really, really smart, I'm going to change everything, you're essentially telling him everything he's done was a waste of time and he's an idiot. And you're going to show him how much of an idiot he is. And that's not a good thing. He wants to hire somebody that can learn from him. So what you need to be doing is going in, and it's the truth, you need to be going in and saying, hey, I think I'm really smart, but I can learn a lot from you. And we can work together to fix the areas that you think need to be fixed. If you go in saying, I'm going to solve the world for you, chances are he's going to go, you're too strong, and you're going to be bored in 6 months, and you're going to be moving on, so I'm not going to hire you. Happens a lot, even actually with senior managers. It's interesting. Okay, this is just truthfully human nature. People like to do business with people that are like themselves. Guaranteed. Everybody does it. So it's not something that's bad necessarily. It's only bad if companies aren't aware of this. So tons and tons of studies in this stuff. So women will hire women more than men. Men will hire men more than men. Age groups, regions, people will hire people from their own cities more than other places. So there's a bias. It's called a decision bias. So automatically, if you're going in for an interview, try and find things that are similar between you and the person you're talking to. Yeah? Now please don't make it up. If you try and fake it, it will never ever work. Don't try and manipulate it. So look for authentic, real reasons why you have something in connection with the person doing the hiring. Yeah? Make sense? You guys are still smiling? Friday afternoon? Yeah? Pink the DNA? Yay. Okay. This one's always fun. So companies like to hire somebody that's going to listen and obey, because go back to point number 1, they're hiring for a position or a role. They really wish you were a robot, but they can't really do that. You need to be a live person. But the next closest thing is guaranteed somebody that's going to listen and obey to what they say. Now, in one sense, that's actually not a bad thing, because truthfully, listening, pretty important skill set you need. Yeah? So you do want to be able to listen. But if you get into a good company, you want to be able to give your views, give your opinions, have the discussion. However, once the decision is made, you need to be aligned on actually executing it. So you do need to obey in the sense that once a decision is made, you're there to do it. But most companies are looking for somebody that's going to be the role or the position, and somebody that's just going to listen and obey. Okay, this one, probably one of the ones I hate the most, but companies will do this. They'll come in and they'll say, you know what? We work really long hours here. We work weekends. You have to be available for all that stuff. It's all garbage. Absolutely. So I would much rather have somebody that gets the entire job done in 4 hours rather than spending 12 hours sitting at a desk. But a lot of companies will, especially for new employees, a lot of companies will expect you to be sitting at that desk for those 12 hours. It's insane. But a lot of companies do actually ask you to do this. Truthfully, there's a few roles where you might actually have to be available 24/7. My head of PR sitting in the back, if you're working PR, you do have to be available 24/7. My job, I need to be available 24/7. Any other job, I'd be thrilled if you can get it done in 6 hours or 4 hours. That's cool. If you want to be on Facebook the rest, no issue. But most companies will be looking for this. Okay. I really do hate that slide, because I really do honestly think that 90% of companies work that way. It's crazy. So if you want to find a great company to work in, and don't get mad on this next slide, because I know none of these are Lithuanian companies, but I'll come back to that. Okay, you guys obviously know Apple. Yes? Virgin? Yes, more or less. Okay, Disney? Yes, more or less. Okay, I'll go through the other two quickly. So Southwest Airlines, besides having the heart in its logo, their stock market symbol is love, L-U-V. Okay? They are one of the first values-based companies in the country, in the world actually, sorry. So they started in about 1970, 1971 kind of thing. If you hear a company, Lithuania anywhere, talking about being a values-based company, chances are they're in that 10% of companies that will be great to work for. Okay? A values-based company is just a company that believes that its culture, its values, come from all of the employees, and it makes business decisions based on those values, that common set of values. It's a values-based company. Yeah? So if you hear them talking about values-based company, chances are it could be one of those 10% of companies. It's kind of cool. Zappos, kind of interesting company too. They sell about $1 billion a year on shoes online. It's really a weird business model, actually. They are the best in the world, though, at customer service through a call center and online. By far the best. Tons and tons of stuff written about them. Their only belief is everything is focused on the culture of the company. And I'll tell you why these guys are all similar and why BT is up there, because I know we're not actually the same as those guys. The reason why is when you read about these guys and you read about their hiring process and how they make decisions to hire, there's one sentence that comes out in every one of these businesses, which is this: you hire for attitude, you train for skills. So back to the first slide where I was talking about most companies hire a position or a role. These guys do exactly the opposite. You hire for attitude, you hire for behaviors, you hire for culture, and then you train for the skills. Yeah? So what that means is if you come into a company and you happen to get the role as financial analyst, 6 months down the road, you could be doing marketing. You could be working in the call center. You could go from retail to be working in marketing. For BT, our head of customer care used to be our lawyer because we hire for attitude and behaviors and culture, and we train for skills. These companies do the same thing. So if you hear a company, again, talking about values, or if you hear a company using these kinds of words in how they hire people, probably one of those top 10% of companies you want to work for. Yeah? It's not a guaranteed, but pretty much. Okay, this slide I only threw up there so I could put up the Budweiser girls. It's good. Okay. And also Patagonia, because I love Patagonia as a brand. It's kind of cool. Now, the other reason for this slide is what I said in that very, very first slide. Remember I said I'd come back to it? That very first slide where the company was talking about, I want the public to think of us as a company with heart, but we're going to rip you up and tear you apart. Yep. Look at what the company does, not what it says. So if you're thinking about applying for a company or you're thinking there's a great company there to work for, go and talk to customers, talk to suppliers, talk to partners of that company. Find out how they act. I'll guarantee you guys, if there's a company in Lithuania where you have a good experience as a customer, chances are it's going to be a good experience as an employee. So if there's those types of things, find them. If there's a company you think you want to work for, find out what the customers feel about that company. Find out about what partners and suppliers think about that company. So don't listen to what they say. That very first slide, that company guaranteed was saying, we're a company you can trust, we're a company that you like, we're a company with heart, but it's not. So don't listen to what they say, the advertising, although the advertising looks pretty good sometimes. Don't listen to the advertising. Talk to the people that actually work with the company. Not to employees either, because sometimes they've been told stuff, but partners, suppliers, those kinds of things. Okay, another way to find one of those top 10% of companies. I'm going to come really close to falling off this thing anytime. Another way to find it, and this sounds really, really simple, but it's really, really deep, is look at the dress code of the company. Yeah? So I've worked in companies that were like the left-hand side. I started in finance, so I'm a financial analyst. That's why I use that example. I was a financial analyst. Coming in, I had to wear a suit and tie, sitting at a cubicle where nobody could see me. Now, guaranteed, I could have changed into a bathing suit after I came into work. Nobody would have known. But the dress code was suit and tie. I also worked at a company for a while, and this sounds like it's a good thing, but it's not really, that had a very strict dress code, but it was a casual dress code. So you had to dress casually. Sounds okay, except for our lawyers who had to go to court and they weren't allowed to wear a suit and tie. Our business sales guys that had to go meet clients and they couldn't wear a suit and tie. Yeah, not so good. So the two extremes. And why I said this is really, really, really important, back to that first point about companies hiring people for a role or a position, not for them being a person, not their personality. The reason a company has a dress code is to get you to leave your personality behind when you come into work. It's the only reason for it. They want you to be somebody else when you come into work. That's the purpose of a dress code. Now, it sounds negative, but I know a lot of people, workers, actually want a dress code because they want to say, okay, now I get dressed up and I'm the worker me. I'm not the personal me. It's a way to separate that. So it's not just the companies, but the reason for a dress code is to make you become somebody different. If you want to find that 10% of companies that maybe doesn't treat you like that treats you like a person first, not a position or a role, just go and hang outside and don't go to the retail stores because retail store clothing is all completely different. Literally, go outside the headquarters and see what people wear. See what the dress code is. Yeah? And if it's the dress code that you like, cool. Dress code for, I think it's Google. I love the dress code, which is wear clothes. It actually works. That's all you really need to do. Even for BTA, as soon as you say, there's no dress code, everybody freaks. Okay, the business sales guys, like I said, are going to show up with no suit and tie. If a business sales guy shows up in front of the customer with no suit and tie, he's not going to make a sale. He's not going to get paid. He learns pretty quickly how he has to dress. You guys know how to dress. You're all dressed now. We don't have to tell you how to dress. It's very personal. It's part of your personality. So if a company is hiring for personality, hiring for behaviors, hiring for attitude, dress code, chances are not going to have one. Most of the time. All make sense? Kind of? Okay, cool. So, and by the way, I mean, I know I used international examples there just because there's a lot written about them and I like reading a lot, so it's good. There are a lot of companies in Lithuania that actually follow this stuff. And I know a few of them. There's a couple of hotels I've run across and other places, so lots of opportunities. Okay, this goes to the question of, I think it was maybe in the introduction, but I was saying traditional education, yeah, maybe not so much. Now, truthfully, my education, very, very traditional. So I have a degree in finance, I have an MBA in international business, and I guarantee you guys I used 90% of what I learned, I've actually used in business. So if you think you get the degree and then forget about it all, that's really, really, really stupid. You should be able to apply whatever you've learned. Otherwise, don't learn. It's kind of a waste of time. But I always get asked this question, knowing what I know about business, would I learn something differently? And I absolutely would. So there's a few things. One, this might sound really, really obvious, but, and I love this guy's quote, tomorrow's illiterate person will be the man who can't read. It'll be the man who does not learn how to learn. Actually, it's a little bit longer than that. It's supposed to say he will be the man who has not learned how to learn, relearn, and unlearn. All that means, and you guys know this really, really well, is education and learning doesn't stop. It goes on forever. If you've spent 20 years learning a certain function or a certain field, I'll guarantee you in year 21, something changes. And probably half of what you learned in those first 20 years was wrong, and you have to unlearn it. So the single most important thing that you can do to get ready for a business, to get ready to working in a company, is to learn how you learn. And I'll guarantee you it's not the way you learned in school. Because in school, they have to teach everybody the same. Every single one of you has a different way of learning the best. Yeah? So you need to understand whether or not you're a left brain thinker or a right brain thinker. For me, I love learning by reading. I read tons and tons of stuff. That's how I learn. I also know myself, when I'm learning, I read and read and read, and I don't get any smarter. I don't learn anything more. It drives me nuts. And then I'll have this moment where it's like a light bulb moment, and I go, now I get it. I didn't understand it yesterday, and now I get it. It's like a light bulb moment. That's what I call it. That's how I learn. I'm aware of that, which means during those first couple of weeks, when nothing's happening, I know not to stop, because I know that's how I learn. You guys need to figure out how you learn the best. So on my team, again, because I like reading, anytime I'd read a great book, I'd buy like 10 copies of the book and I'd start passing them out. Finally, my team said to me, we don't like reading. It's not the way we learn. So I sat down with them, we worked on how do they learn the best. Every one of you has to learn how you learn because it's going to go on forever. Yeah? Okay, learn communication. So there's just 2 more slides after this, but when I say learn communication, it's actually kind of sad. I've seen people in business that have been in business for 20, 30 years that really, really suck at communication. And when I say communication, I mean across everything. So it's understanding the theory of communication, like the very fact that I can be saying something to you and I know what I'm saying, but if you're not understanding it, it's no good. It doesn't make any difference. But you run across this all the time. You ever get into an argument with somebody and they say, you're not listening to what I'm saying? Okay, that's somebody that doesn't understand communication. Because the only thing that's important in communication is the person hearing your message. It's not important what you say, it's important what they hear. Yeah? So learning the study of communication, huge, huge, huge. This also means learning communication channels. So what are the different ways of communicating? Yeah? The single most important thing in communication that nobody ever does is one-on-one communication. You think you know it, but I'll guarantee you in a business, everybody wants feedback. No managers like to give feedback because they don't know how to. Most managers don't know how to coach because they were never taught. So when you learn communication, learn the one-on-one communication, how to give feedback, how to receive feedback, how to listen, how to coach. Yeah? Communication skills, huge. And I'll guarantee you, if you actually have good communication skills, sets you apart from 90% of the people in a company because most people don't. Yeah? The unlearned communication is one of my pet peeves though. So it's a good example. That first slide, again with the company that said we'd be known as a company with heart. If there was a call center with that company, I'll guarantee you this is how it would work. They'd say, so you're a new employee, you're coming in for the first day. They'd say, okay, welcome, very cool. We want to be known as a company with heart. You go, okay, that kind of makes sense. We want you to talk to customers like they're your friends. Okay, even that kind of makes sense. It's open, it's honest, it's transparent, could make sense. You can see that, you can make the linkage. And then what do? Most companies, they'll hand you a script and say, and this is how you do it. Okay, hold it. We just said we want you to talk to customers like friends. You guys all have friends. You know how to talk to friends. I don't need to tell you how to talk to friends. If a company hands you a script, they're trying to tell you how they think you should talk to your friends. That makes no sense. So all the stuff, when you learn the communication, all the stuff about formal ways of communication, formal ways of talking, forget it. Be yourself.